Well, I have one question. I don't know if it's a good question, but for Look Sharp and Joyride, is there, you mentioned the singles, but is there maybe a song on either of those albums that you thought was really good, but it never really got the traction or it never really got picked up?
Well, when we recorded Look Sharp, I thought it was like, for every song we started, we did like Paint was one of my favorite songs on that album, Sleeping Single. You know, when Marie started to sing Sleeping Single, I felt like this, hey, I've never been involved with anything as good as this. This is the best thing I've ever been involved with. It just sounded so fresh, and she was singing it. And she, I think also from Marie's point of view, I think why she really wanted to be part of Roxette, for me it was easy because it was my songs. But what she got from me was the material to explore her voice. And when she did her solo albums and working with her Swedish material, it was a very different style, very low key, more singer-songwriter thing. But in Roxette, she could sing. Suddenly she got songs like Sleeping Single or Cry or Dressed for Success. I mean, Dressed for Success is a one-take vocal. It's amazing. I think it's on film as well. We have it on film somewhere. She was just amazing, and she never really sang anything like that.
Sorry, did that change your songwriting then? Did you?
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, I wrote. Suddenly, I started writing songs from her perspective. You know, sometimes when you write a love song, the way you choose your words could be very masculine or very feminine. And suddenly I knew that, hey, this is going to be sung by Marie, so I have to do it a little differently, so it feels comfortable for her. And also sometimes she told me that I can't sing this sentence. This sentence doesn't make sense to me. It's too, I don't know, it's not me. So I rewrote it, and I think that is one of the reasons why she didn't want to sing The Look, because those verses are basically guide lyrics. I wrote these lyrics like walking like a man, hidden like a hammer, she's a juvenile scam, to remember the rhythm, you know. And then I kept it because it's in some sort of I'm a walrus style. It made sense, you know, if you wanted to, but it doesn't really sort of no English person or American person could ever write lyrics like that. But I could because I'm Swedish.
That actually makes sense when you mention I am the walrus.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I always blame John Lennon for so many things in my lyrics.
If there's one person to blame, why not him?
He's the one.
And so after Joyride was a great success as well. So after that period afterwards, and I've heard you talk about this, because then we already talked about it a little bit, the kind of the movements within music, and then grunge came in.
Yeah.
So at that point, when you first heard those bands, Nirvana, what was your first thought?
Oh, I loved it. I really loved Nirvana, and I loved Oasis in England, and that is one. You know, we after all those years of touring and success with Joyride and Look Sharp, and we did this album called Tourism, which had one of our biggest songs, How Do You Do, on it. We went to Capri and recorded the Crash Boom Bang album, and it took forever, and it contains some of our best stuff, I think, but we had a playback for our record company, and they said they couldn't find the first single, you know. You can't hear the single. It's Tom Petty's song. Anyway, so I went home and I wrote "Sleeping in My Car" because I was really pissed off with them. So I wrote that in the same evening and recorded a demo the day afterwards. And that was for me, it was very much influenced by Oasis and the grunge thing, because it was kind of different from the traditional Roxette. It was all live in the studio. Clarence, our producer, he hated this. He didn't really want to produce it, but he did anyway, because he felt it was so, you know, unnatural for Roxette to go in that direction. Which, for me, it wasn't at all, because this is exactly how my previous Swedish new wave band sounded, you know, because that was like the power pop era. So Sleeping in My Car could have very much been made by my Swedish band 4 years earlier, or 5 years earlier. So Sleeping in My Car was different.
Well, let me ask this then, because is it then difficult that people at that time have an idea of what Roxette is, and that when you do something different, even though it's very much you, that they can't see it or understand?
Well, that is always the tricky thing, you know. When you created a sound, some people want you to stick with the sound, and some people, like yourself, you want to move on. It's the same if you go to like artists like me or like Elton John or Paul McCartney. No other comparisons. You go to a show of theirs and you want to hear your favorite songs. You don't want to hear his latest album, you know, because you haven't even heard it. You want to hear those fantastic 40 songs that he wrote earlier on in his life. And it's the same with when you created something. So many people want you to stick to that. But from an artistic point of view, it's a nightmare, because you don't want to repeat yourself. You want to move on, and I think, from my point of view as a writer or making records, when I write this new song, it feels fresh to me, much fresher to me than it probably does for you, because it's a new song, you know. But without knowing it, it still has my sort of trademark on it, the way I phrase things or the way I construct the chords or whatever. So it's I feel like I move on all the time, but if I look back or what I did like a decade ago, I can see like, shit, it sounds sort of the same.
Right. But then at the same time, I mean, this year is the 30th anniversary of the second album. So, I mean, what does that tell you about the music, that there are still people who daily listen to that music on a daily basis, who still come to the shows, who still... what does that tell you about that era of your creativity?
Well, I think it's an honor, of course, and it's a big compliment. At the same time, I think it's the music industry and the society was so much different 30 years ago. I mean, today it's very much about streaming music, and which is a good thing in a way, because everything is available. But what you lose is the physical thing, the record sleeves, the artwork, the presentation of music. I always say to people, think about all those albums you grew up with, like Aladdin Sane or Sticky Fingers or Abbey Road, and think about them without the sleeves, you know. It's so hard to do it. It just becomes music, just becomes songs, and they're so glued together with the covers. And it's the same with the Look Sharp album with Roxette. It's so much. If you talk to all those people who still listen to those albums, they think about the videos, they think about the presentation, they think about, you know, Marie's hairdo. It's just like it's a combination of it's how pop music was presented to begin with. You know, now it's different. Now it's a social media thing. It's a more marketing thing. But that's the way the society has gone. I always say that pop music's only purpose is to reflect society of today. And if you look at pop music from the 60s, it very much reflected how the 60s were, you know, how fashion, architecture, art, literature, film, movies, fashion and music were linked together much more than it is today. Right. And that's today you have the pop music of today is very much created on computers, written in a different style, because you move patterns on a computer. You're not doing like smart chords on a guitar anymore. You know, and that's exactly how society has become. It's very efficient, and you work it's very easy to work in a formula, because if it works, you do it similar.
I've talked about this with more people. I just wanted to see your take on it. But obviously, there's the music and the business. So, do you think the business has, at least in my opinion, the business is taking a larger and larger role in comparison to the music? How do you feel about the business side of things?
Yeah, I think so too. I think the business side has taken over. Like in every art form, it has become like it's the same way. It's a changing world. You have the Netflix, you have the HBOs, and you have the Amazon, and you don't have any record stores anymore. And you know, it goes hand in hand with what happens in music as well. but also, you know, I have a son who's 20 years old, and he has all these. I mean, he plays a little bit of guitar, but not really. You know, a little bit of piano, but not really. But he plays Counter-Strike 6 hours a day, and he's spending so much time with his computer, playing games, and with his friends all over the world, and sitting there and shouting in his microphone. And that's exactly how I did, but I did it with Dark Side of the Moon in my headphones. You know, so it's a different generation and a different way of dealing with things. So maybe it is as simple as that pop music or rock music doesn't mean that much to the new generation as it did for my generation.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, but it's a very interesting take on it. I do want to mention Marie because I think in 2016 she kind of had to say, well, my body can't take this. And what was it for the both of you, just the two of you, to kind of know that was kind of the end of you being on stage together?
It was of course sad. At the same time, it was expected. I could tell on the last tour we did. The last shows we did were in South Africa. You could tell that Marie wasn't really comfortable doing this anymore. It was a struggle for her sometimes. So it didn't come out of the blue at all. But at the same time, of course, it's the end of our lives together as Roxette. I mean, it was impossible for her to continue. It's really sad, of course. But at the same time, I tried to think positive. She got ill in 2002, and she managed to come back, and we had like 5 additional years on the road together, doing 3 albums, and so that she's a very strong person, and yeah, what can I say?
And you both do your solo work now, and then can you see a way of you working together or even just helping each other out with a song, or in that way?
You mean in the future?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, I will always be there for Marie if she needs any help. I don't know if she's gonna make any new records at all. But you know, I'm there.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Then I want to talk to you about your solo album, Small Town Talk.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was based on 2 albums that you had written in Swedish. So how did that come to be to make an English version out of it?
Well, you know, first of all, when Marie and we decided that we should stop Roxette, that was in the spring of 2016. I said to myself, I want to do something radically different from what I've done over the last years. So I decided to go to Nashville and to record with the Nashville musicians, which turned out to be a very personal album. My mother died, my sister died, and my brother died within a period of 3 years. And so I wrote a lot of songs about sort of, getting older, basically, and looking back and things. Right. So it was intended to be 1 album, but it was so much material, so I decided to divide them into 2 albums, 2 Swedish albums. And then I had such a great time in Nashville, and it turned out really special for me, and it's something I hadn't done before. So I decided to make it like an English version of these sessions, and then I tried to translate those lyrics into English, and I couldn't really do it because it was too close to me. Right. So I took help from an American girl called Sharon Vaughan, who lives in Nashville. So she wrote 6 of the lyrics, and she's partly living in Stockholm, so she knows a little bit of Swedish. So she could almost partly understand what I was writing about in Swedish, and she did a great job, and that helped me a lot, you know. And then. Also, I toured with the Swedish version, the country albums, last summer, and I had partly a new band, and so I brought that band into the studio in the last autumn to record 3 tracks with that band, because I wanted that band to be part of that record as well. Right. So it's a little mishmash of everything. It turned out to be Small Town Talk.
Very last question then. Is it saying that they're very personal? What is it like performing those songs?
It's great. It's the older you get, the more personal you want to be. I think, you know. For me, it's like that anyway. It's like every time you sing songs like that, it's time stands still a bit, and you know, I consider myself really lucky because I've had 3 really successful careers. You know, my solo career in Swedish, and my Swedish band is always working very well in Sweden, and also Roxette. So I can do like different things all the time, which is, especially when I did this tour last summer in Sweden, for the first time I combined those 3 groups into the show. So I played material from all my 3 careers, both in English and in Swedish for the Swedish and the Scandinavian crowd. And that was very special, you know, because it's so different. Even it's got my trademarks on it, it's very different. And we have certain songs are like pedal steel and violin, and other songs are like Joyride or The Look. So it's very different, but it's great.
Per, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.